we would like to ask Mrs. Vivian Keller to start with her presentation. Mrs. Keller is an architect who worked in different agencies before joining the Buildings, Heritage and Logistics Service of the States of Voi 1919. In 2004, she took the lead of the Sustainable Development Unit, which is responsible of the government's sustainable policy. She's about to finish her Master in Public Administration. Please.
Thank you. Well, I hope you ate good. The food was really good, and I am happy you are back because there is some sweeties, and sometimes sweeties can let people stay longer outside. So I am very pleased to be here, and I am really happy to present the experience of the state of Vaud in the field of construction. The title of my presentation is a bit too ambitious. I am going to talk about energy and construction as before this morning. In Switzerland, especially in the canton of Vaud, the state is having a large stock of buildings, and we are really pleased to present this policy because this policy is especially made to reduce consumption of energy and to promote renewable energy. And one thing which is really important is that the state has to act in an exemplary manner to show all the society the right way to follow, because if the state does not good things, private sectors and constructor and citizen cannot follow the same way to reduce consume of energy. And we know today that the challenge all the planet and Western countries is huge, and the act of each of us is really important. It's a bit small, but my presentation is in two parts. The first one, I am going to come back on special things about global warming context and limitation of non-renewable resources, because I think it's really important to understand the context, because we are all on the same planet and the context is the same for everybody in the way. And then I'm going to show you the example of the real estate management of my canton. Canton, I don't know if you have it in Greece. It's like about 1,000 people living somewhere together on a land. I don't know if you have that in the 1 million, yes. Well, not 1 billion, oh, oof, no, 1 million. So, where we are, here there is two schemes. On the left, you have the scheme of the concentration of the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere, and on the right, you have a scheme which saw, in fact, what do we have in the time about oil and gas liquids. So today, a lot of people, countries, scientists do not believe in the global warming. And even in Switzerland, in high school and other schools, and a lot of scientists say global warming, it's only due to the life of Earth, which is getting warm and cold in the time. It's not due to the activity of people. And in fact, if you don't believe in global warming, when you look at the scheme on the right, you can see that the peak oil is going to arrive. We don't know exactly when, because it's a controversy. Some people say that the peak oil was in 2010, and some people say that the peak oil is going to arrive much later. The peak oil, I don't know if you know what does it mean, but in fact it's when you open a tap, oil or water are going out, and there is a moment when the tap is opened, but the oil doesn't come out. That means or the oil costs more, or we have to look it in a deeper or much more difficult place, and the environmental impact of the peak oil is much worse. But one thing is sure, is that it's going much, much more expensive. So if you believe in green gas house effect today and in the peak oil scheme, that means that we have to act quickly everywhere, every day, and at every scale. And on the left, so we can see that between the time till 2000, the concentration of greenhouse gas is getting higher and higher and higher. And even today, we are not talking about having no warming of the planet, but we are talking about to get used to the warmth of the planet. And as my colleague of the federal state said today, we are planning to have 2 degrees more in Switzerland, at least. If you have questions, just ask them. I don't know if my English is all right, but I hope you understand me. Here it's another scheme which is really interesting. I have made a special line with Switzerland. We are among all these countries. Look, on the top you have USA as usual, but today China is worst, and down you have India. This scheme is showing, in fact, the direct emission, direct exportation, and direct importation of carbon dioxide, and it doesn't show, in fact, the number of people who are living in these countries. That means that India, which is having a low carbon impact, really has a lot of people. China too, I don't know where is China, it should be much higher. There is no China. China, but now China is much higher. And that means there is something missing in this scheme. So we have to imagine the number of people who are living in these countries. But what is interesting is that in Switzerland, we have direct emission in red, and we have direct importation in blue. And the direct importation, in fact, it's everything we buy outside, especially from China. When we buy computers, we buy the car, we buy clothes. That means we are buying things, and the pollution is not on the accountability of our country, but on the accountability of China. That means even if we have really good law and bill about environment, energy, taxes, and we can say, okay, everything is clean in Switzerland, we don't have any emission, our emissions are just done in other countries. That means we have to be much more conscious of what we buy, and we have to try to influence the people who are making this product, in fact China at least, just to make better things. And we have to know that in China, the efficiency is energy, I think it's 2/3 the efficiency of energy in Switzerland. That means our importation are having a really large impact abroad. And here again, the emission of the carbon dioxide. And that means we are all on the same boat, and everyone has to act. And here, especially in Switzerland, we have to act about importation. It's true Switzerland doesn't have a lot of industry. We don't make any cars, we don't make computers. I don't know exactly what we do, but we have a lot of intellectual possibility of working, at least. So I think it's pretty important to... Oh là là, je bouge le truc toute seule. Okay. Ensuite, the next one, it's much more at the scale of our country. It is a scale of Switzerland by sectors about greenhouse gases. And we can see that there is something special, but agriculture, it's about 20.9% because of the coal, not because they are doing some methane, and agriculture is an important polluter in Switzerland. And we can see that the traffic is 30%, and waste, also industry service. So we have the exact emission gas emission per sector. It's interesting to know that the traffic, which is 30.3% of the emission, 8% is for leisure. That means we are using our cars to go outside the city, to do bicycle or to walk or to visit something, and it's a lot of traffic is due to the leisure, and we can just think about that. This slide, you saw it this morning for people who were here this morning, that the final Swiss energy consumption by energy source. What is true is that petroleum fuel and gas is the most, is the energy we use the most, and we don't have any of them. We'd have to take them from abroad. And electricity is always wider and wider because we use much more computers. All the IT have an impact which is important about the final consumers. That at our scale, the scale of the Canton de Vaud, we have an emission of ton per person of 5.7. It's a lot of dioxide of carbon, and in the Canton de Vaud, we are driving more than other parts of Switzerland because we are a large canton and people are having much more cars than in the German part like Basilea and Zurich, and we can see there is a problem of mentality of driving much more in the western part of Switzerland than in northern part. So we can work on that kind of things. This is a slide which is showing a lot of things, but I think it's really important, as all of them, but especially with this one, to understand a little bit how does it work in Switzerland. What we have to say is that the global political energy is made by the federal state. He has to guarantee all people to have energy at a good price with no too many impacts on the environment. And then the cantonal and the private sector, which has to provide this energy. And there is a kind of coherence between the national level and the cantonal level, and then at the city level, on the local level. At the national level, I was in June in the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, and the Federal Council, that executive government at the national level, did again the commitment to work for sustainable development, and I say it's important, but we can see that the leader of the country are working for sustainable development. At the national level, Switzerland make commitment at the Kyoto Protocol, and we make the commitment to reduce of 8% our greenhouse gas emission, about 8%, no, not about 8% reduction between 1990 and 2012, and we know that today we couldn't reach, in fact, this goal, but this goal is really important, and all the legislation is made to reach this goal. At the federal level, we have the CO2 legislation with taxes, and if we don't reach, in fact, the goal of 8% reduction with the GHG emissions, we have to higher the tax on the CO2. That means we have to pay much more for each ton of carbon which is emitted. And this morning we saw that the energy strategy for 2050 and also the strategy for the green economy, that means our national government decided to work much stronger in the problematic of energy. At the cantonal commitment, we have to realize the federal objective, so we have to have some government which are also decided to work on this way. And we have also an Agenda 21. I don't know if you know the Agenda 21, but it was at the Earth Summit of 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. It's Brundtland who did for the first time, gave the definition of sustainable development, and she did a whole program for the 21st century, which is called Agenda 21. And then all countries, regions, small localities could take this program and try to make some definition for themselves, and we have that at the national level and also at the cantonal level. And in the agenda there is objective tackling with global warming, and there is an energy act which is every year stronger, and we are working especially on the urban planning. And what is important here is that the state has to work as an exemplar. It doesn't have to do law for citizen, a private company. If he does law, he has also to apply this law to itself and to show the example and to work beyond what law is asking for. I think it's really important because there is a coherence, but with no national commitments and with no commitments of the local government, it's really difficult to work in the administration and to find the way to go, and it's difficult to have energy, personal energy to work every day in a way if you are not led somewhere. Then something happened because with energy we were not sleeping, but we were not having goal really precise, but Fukushima happened. And I think we don't know when it will end, and we don't know how much it's going to cost, nobody knows. But what we know is that a huge part of land will be just impossible, it won't be possible for men to live in. And the entire world was shocked by the accident. Who could imagine last year that the leader of technology, Japan, would build a nuclear power close to the sea with a well-known risk? I think it's a really shock for everyone. And in the 25th May of 2011, the Federal Council decided to change all the energy policy and to close the nuclear plants. And what is important is that to say the federal government is on the right side politically, though it doesn't come from only for the ecologists and so on, it does come for the economical part of the government. So they decided to close the nuclear plants within 2034, but now it's still 40% of our electricity, and we have to work drastically to reduce our consumption, so the challenge is quite big. I changed the scale. Here we have the example of the state of Vaud. It's the second part of my presentation. So the state of Vaud is the first employer of the canton. We are about 20,000 employees. That means more or less 16 full-time jobs, 2,000 buildings, 35,000 computers, 83,000 students in compulsory school, and we have a budget more or less of 8 billion. And the population now it's 700,000, but we are planning to be 1 billion in 2030. So we can say that the state of Vaud is quite large. It's not a small company. There is some challenge to manage this company. And about the building, we have all kinds of buildings: schools, churches, prisons, administration office, tribunals. So the panel is quite large. And some of these buildings are high energy consumers, especially schools which were built in the 70s. So the priority is given to the renovation now. And a priority is given, but how this priority is made precise. In Switzerland, there is a project which is called the 2000 Watt Society. It's a project which was invented in the, high technology school. And the objective of this project is to reach, is to reach a 2000 watt society in 2050. And 2000 watt, it's how the consumption of electricity energy we had in 1960. And nobody can say that in 1960 the standard of living was bad. There was cars, everybody was eating, we were having light in house and also heating. So the objective is try to reach this 2000 watts consumption, but there is a big question mark because today we don't know exactly how we are going to replace the nuclear power. But if the school and the technical school and the state and the private company are working together, I think we can have some good hope that we could reach the 2000 society watt in 2050. But about the buildings the state of Vaud, which are owned by the state of Vaud, what they made is that they took all the building, they calculate the energy consumption of the whole building, and then they made some the planification to see which building has to be renovated to reach for the whole building a whole consumption of 2001 in 2050. That means we are not talking about one project on one building and then another project on the other building and we are doing an addition. We are trying to have a whole view of all the stock of buildings, and then we try to act where it is the most efficiency, and when 1 franc is invested, we can reduce more the energy. That means we have a global vision, and the work, in fact, was especially to build this global vision, because we had to calculate all the consumers, all the consumption in water, electricity, and so on for each building, and then when we had these images, we could make the good decision to invest where we had to. And the challenge is big. It's just, I don't know if you know this, this slide. We can find it quite easily on internet. But that means when you want to reach the 2000 society, it's not only the heat and the electricity, it's also the mobility, it's also the way people do act in the building, it's also to change the bulb and to put some valve on the heat. And it does also concerns IT, because we see that all the effort we make in heat to make the renovation of the heat is lost by a higher mobility, and all the effort we make to reduce the consumption of electricity in a building, sometimes with the IT it's totally broken, because the more IT we put in a building, the more electricity consumption we have. So there is some challenge here. And for the real estate of the Canton de Vaud, that shows a little bit the I don't know what we can say, but the jump we have to do. But I think we can see that the factor is 3.1 for the heat and 2.9 for the electricity. And it's not the way we want to achieve this goal. It's not only technology, it's also to try to influence people of what they eat, because the global warming is also due to what we eat, but also the mobility and how do they act inside their workplace. Because some people now, with the computers and the new technology, they think that the computers is on in a too long way in the morning, so they don't turn it off in the night. And I see around me in my office that the people, they just leave the office in the night and they don't turn off the computers, because in the morning it takes maybe 3 or 4 minutes just to get loaded. And that's a lot of energy consumption, and that no technology can help to save this energy. It's really people who has to act. So this is the objective for 2050. And what is important to say is that these targets are really decided by the government. It is true that it is architects and managers who are doing the projects in the buildings, competition in architecture and so on, but it's really decided by the government. That means all the buildings which are built by the state have to reach this target. It's not a simple architect or a simple manager in a service who can make the decision. It's really a leadership which is approved by the government. And here we have objective for a 5-year period with a minus 20% thermal energy, water consumption, electricity, and then we follow all the projects, and we can see the way we followed and if it's a good direction or not. But what I want to show is that it's approved by the government, and to make the government approve something like that, it's a lot of work, because the government is not especially sensible to his own buildings, and they have other political problem, and now it's really coming up at the high level. It is signed by the seven persons who are in our government. And how do we act? It seems totally ridiculous to show that, because everybody knows the rationale, it's the etiquette for the energy. Simple, it's to insulate more. Valve and then other bulb which does consumes less. So it's not high technology, it's really what we can find on the market, and try to follow the market, because if you see on the left there is a washing machine. Today it is having maybe a A label, but in 2 years the A label is going to consume less energy, so we change the machine when it is, I don't know exactly when, but changing all the machine in one time, it's not especially good. But we try to use what exists. We don't invent new tools. We do use the tools which are on the market. That's a nice picture to show renewable energy. Here there is a solar energy, but we have a lot of problem to implant them. But because we are in a small country and the landscape is really important, especially for the tourism sector. And today it's really difficult to build solar. How do you say solar energy? And, but I put it because there is some project and water, solar energy and wood. We have a lot of forest, and now it's an objective to use much more wood to heat and have electricity. And something which is important for the state is that we are working on tools. Sometimes we do develop tools, but when we do develop tools, we put them on the web, and these tools can be used by other people, by the private company. We are not developing tools which are staying in our offices, but we are trying to influence the comportment of the rest of the society. And here it is tools about architectural projects, and we can see that if you don't think at the beginning of a project opportunities to influence a project, really with good objectives and needs, you don't know what to do, it's not here that you are going to change something about energy consumption. So what we did, we developed special tools for each step of a project. Objective and needs, in fact, it's before the architectural competition. If an office tells us, okay, we have 30 more employees, or 30 less, but 30 more employees, we need offices. Okay, one person will say, okay, let's buy a new building and they're going to go in. But another person is going to say, but maybe we can put one person more in the office we have, and we can be a bit more in the same place, and another person is going to be, but we can renew the building and maybe just put one store more. So that it's a tool just to analyze the objectives and the needs, because we always build something for someone else, and it's important just to understand really well what the need is, as maybe to say, okay, you need a place, but it's maybe not a new building, maybe we can be more in one office. Then there is special tools for the competition. That means in the program of the architectural competition, the objective of sustainability are written. The architect who gives an answer has to show and explain what it does and what is his objective and how he intends to achieve this objective. And it is really, it's a strong part of the judgment. During the construction, it's a little bit with the last presentation we had about gray energy. We try to choose materials which are good for the environment and, if we can, for the society. And here it's really it's something important, because you know, you build a building maybe during 2 years, and then you use it for 30 or 40 years, and it is during this time that the energy consumption is really strong. So the management and operation is really important to ensure that what you decided here is really done here. And then at the end, it's also important to ensure good recycling and elimination, to make, if it's possible, all the materials come back in the circle. And for all of this step, we had special tools which were developed since 10 years today, and they are really available for who wants. It's no copyright tools, if I say. That's another tool. It's about monitoring of projects. We developed a tool which is accessible on the web. I don't know if it's translated, no. In German, in English, no, it's only in French, sorry. But it's accessible on the web, and in fact, it does tell to the project manager in all, at every step of his project, at what he has to think in energy, material. It does give the reference of environment law, and you can enter all the description of your project on the web, and then you can follow, in fact, your project on the web. And it's a good tool which was made by the state of Vaud, the town of Lausanne, and by the federal government. I have a last slide, two last slides. This is a little bit weird, this slide, but It's another instrument. You know, when you have a big stock of buildings, you tell, but how much is the water consumption? And the guy, the supplier who is working in this building, he says, oh, I don't know. So the first thing you have to do, you have to put something to count the water consumption. And then you say, electricity consumption, how much it is? And he says, oh, I don't know, I just pay the bill at the end of the month. So it takes a long, long time just to have the tools to know which consumption you have. And then the person who is working in the building can enter all the stuff on the web, electricity consumption, and we have a good global vision of all building, and we can see when there is something wrong during the night or during the day, and we can just try to see on the technical stuff what can we do just to avoid to have that kind of high consumption. And it's a follow of consumption 24 hours on 24 hours all the day long, and it's a technique, it's I don't know, a tool which is on the web. It is free for all the collectivity to use it, and they can enter all the building to do a follow of consumption during the year. It's an online tool. Okay, so that's a bit for the technique. It's my last slide. The results, I only put some picture because the results, there is a lot of results because we can reach what the government decided we do consume less. And the result, it's sometimes nice in architectural way too. Technology, it's not only against architecture, sorry. Here we made architectural competition. It's a place where there is some administration, place to work, and it's a place where there is some big truck. It's people who are, comment on dit, entretenir, working with roads. And this building is made of wood which doesn't come from really far from the place, so it's a stock of CO2. The heat is ensured by green vegetables because they just take small bushes and small trees which are along the road and they put it in the heat. And we have solar panel on one side, and it's a complete, it's totally autonomous, energy autonome, je sais pas comment on dit. And it's an example, it was built maybe 5 or 7 years ago, and it was on the first building in the canton built by the state with so much results. But it was the first time that we put in the architectural competition that we wanted sustainability. But I remember the program said, we want a building which can achieve sustainability, dot. We don't have any other criteria. And today, what we are doing other architectural competition, the criteria are much more numerous. Thank you.
Any questions?
Good.
Everything was very clear. We thank you for your interesting presentation. Okay, sorry. No, θα έρθει αυτή.
I would like, please, to ask you, how much long did it take you to make all these statistics for your canton?
The strategy?
Yes.
You mean the strategy which is signed by the government? Or which one? All?
The actual...
we began in 2008. I was hired in 2008, and we were, trying to think how we could do, because there is a lot of architects who were not sensible to that kind of stuff, and today we can say that we work 15 years to reach this. So it's really slow. But what we can say that young people today are the architects who do a response to our competition are much more aware of stuff. Because before they were, were doing nice projects and we would say, okay, the energy is clean, no problem. But today we have much more calculate, the plans are much more precise, so the movement is on.
Άλλη ερώτηση? Δεν βλέπω καμία. Thank you.